Commander Vorax gazed through the main viewport of the Imperial Conquest vessel Dominion at the blue-green planet below. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he stroked the ridge of scales along his jaw. The third planet of this unremarkable solar system looked promising. Abundant water, breathable atmosphere, and primitive inhabitants who, according to preliminary scans, had barely mastered basic spaceflight. Status report, Vorax demanded, his voice carrying the distinctive rasp of the Krellarran elite. Lieutenant Miza tapped her control panel with 3 of her 6 digits. Atmospheric composition ideal for our biology, Commander. Nitrogen-oxygen mix with trace gases. Temperature ranges acceptable for colonization. Indigenous species detected with rudimentary technology. Nothing our forces cannot handle. Excellent. Vorax's mouth stretched into what passed for a smile among his species. Prepare the declaration of conquest. Standard procedure. Inform the locals we're claiming their world for the glory of the Krellarran Empire. Science Officer Plex cleared his throat, a nervous habit he'd developed after years of delivering unwelcome information to superiors. Commander, our data suggests the dominant species calls themselves humans. They appear fractured into numerous political entities rather than operating under unified planetary governance. How primitive, Vorax scoffed. Makes our job easier. They'll be unable to mount coordinated resistance. Select one of their settlement areas for our initial foothold. Something representative of their civilization, but not their most advanced sectors. We'll establish our base and expand from there. Tactical Officer Zenla consulted her screens. I've identified a promising location, Commander. A moderate-sized urban area in a region they call Michigan. The settlement is named Detroit. It once appeared to be a significant manufacturing center but has experienced economic decline. Perfect for our needs. Established infrastructure we can repurpose, but not so vital that taking it would provoke their most extreme response. Detroit, Vorax repeated, testing the alien word. Very well. Prepare the landing party. Standard Conquest protocol. First wave of 300 troops with support staff. Set up perimeter defenses, secure local governance buildings, and begin processing the indigenous population. Zenla nodded crisply. Yes, Commander. Conquest fleet prepped and ready for deployment within 2 planetary rotations. Make it 1, Vorax replied. The faster we establish our presence, the less time they have to organize resistance. I want boots on the ground before their next sunrise. As you command, Zenla responded, hiding her annoyance at the rushed timeline behind a mask of military discipline. As his officers dispersed to carry out his orders, Vorax turned back to the viewport. Another world for the Empire. His 16th conquest. This one would surely earn him that coveted promotion to the Imperial High Command. These humans would soon know the honor of serving the greatest civilization in the galaxy. General Kraz, commander of the Krellarran ground forces, stood at rigid attention before the holo display showing Commander Vorax. Landing zones secured, sir. We've established perimeter defenses around a 10-square-kilometer area of this Detroit. Minimal resistance encountered so far. Minimal? Not none? Vorax's upper eyes narrowed. A few locals with primitive projectile weapons attempted to interfere. They were dealt with. Kraz shifted uncomfortably. Though I must report something unusual, Commander. Speak. Several of the humans we encountered seemed unimpressed by our arrival. One actually tried to sell us something called insurance for our landing craft. Another attempted to charge us for parking our troop transports on what he claimed was his private property. Vorax blinked all 4 eyes simultaneously, a sign of surprise among his kind. They weren't terrified by the arrival of an advanced alien species. Some were, sir, but others. Kraz paused, searching for the right words. Others seemed to regard us as merely an inconvenience. One human female approached our forward scouts and asked if we were one of those movie things and whether she needed a permit to watch. Curious, Vorax mused. Their behavior doesn't match our psychological profiles. Continue with the conquest plan. I want their local leadership identified and brought to me for formal surrender within 1 planetary rotation. About that, Sir Kraz looked distinctly uncomfortable now. We're having trouble determining who actually governs this settlement. We occupied their central administrative building as per protocol, but it was largely empty. Most offices abandoned. When we located humans who claimed to be officials, they directed us to others. Who directed us elsewhere, it's been rather circular. Incompetence. Vorax hissed. Find whoever collects their taxes. That's always the real power in any civilization. We're trying, sir. We've also begun the standard population assessment. Initial findings are puzzling. Explain. This Detroit appears significantly underpopulated for its size. Many structures are abandoned. Infrastructure is in surprising disrepair for a species with their technological capability. And the inhabitants keep asking if we've come to gentrify the area. I'm not familiar with this term. Vorax waved a dismissive hand. Irrelevant local concerns. Proceed with establishing our administrative headquarters. Begin resource assessment and population processing. I'll arrive personally tomorrow to oversee operations. Yes, Commander, Kraz replied, saluting with a fist to chest. As the communication ended, Kraz turned to his second-in-command, Captain Jix. This assignment feels off. Jix tilted her head. How so, General? Look around us. Kraz gestured at the dilapidated buildings visible through the windows of the abandoned auto factory they'd commandeered as their temporary headquarters. Does this look like a prize worth conquering? The Conquest Intelligence Bureau reported this planet as a valuable acquisition. Yet this city appears to be falling apart. Perhaps this is not representative of the entire planet? Jix suggested. Perhaps, Kraz acknowledged. Or perhaps the Intelligence Bureau has made a critical error in judgment. Again. Lieutenant Baz of the Krellarran Security Division checked his atmospheric monitor for the 3rd time in an hour. Something about this planet's air made his scales itch, though readings showed nothing harmful to their biology. He led his patrol through streets lined with abandoned buildings, many covered in colorful markings the translation software identified as graffiti. Sir Private Larn called out, "Movement ahead." Baz signaled for the squad to halt, raising his pulse rifle. "Identify yourself, human." From behind a rusted ground transport vehicle emerged a tall human male wearing multiple layers of worn clothing. "Oh, easy with that space gun, man." The human raised his hands, but didn't seem particularly frightened. "You guys part of that alien invasion thing? The one they've been talking about on Twitter?" Baz blinked in confusion. "We are representatives of the Krellarran Empire, here to claim this world for our glorious emperor." The human nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Cool, cool. You picked Detroit, huh? Interesting choice." "This settlement was strategically selected as our primary foothold on your world," Baz stated proudly. The human scratched his beard. "You guys do any research before picking Detroit?" "Our Intelligence Bureau conducts thorough evaluations before any conquest." "Right." The human seemed to be fighting back laughter. "So you guys planning to stay long?" "The Krellarran Empire's presence is eternal," Baz recited from the standard conquest manual. "This world will serve as a colony for generations to come." Starting with Detroit. Now the human was definitely smirking. "Indeed, we will transform this settlement into a model of imperial efficiency." "Good luck with that." The human glanced around at the crumbling infrastructure. "Oh, by the way, name's Marcus. Since we're going to be neighbors and all." Baz wasn't sure how to respond to this casual attitude. The Conquest Manual had sections on dealing with terrified locals, hostile resistance, and even religious fanatics who might worship the newcomers as gods. It had nothing about humans who treated planetary invasion like a mild curiosity. "You are not afraid?" Baz finally asked. Marcus shrugged. "Buddy, this is Detroit. We've seen worse than some scaly dudes with fancy guns. No offense. Worse than interstellar conquerors with technology centuries beyond your comprehension? You ever dealt with our insurance companies?" Marcus replied. "Or the DMV. Now that's scary." Before Baz could process this bewildering response, his comm unit buzzed. "Lieutenant, return to base immediately. General Kraz is declaring code yellow." Acknowledged, Baz replied before addressing Marcus. "You should return to your dwelling. Curfew will be imposed shortly." "Yeah, probably," Marcus agreed, making no move to leave. "Hey, quick question before you go. You guys need any local guides? Someone who knows the area? Because I could use the work, and I'm guessing you folks might be a bit lost." Baz stared at him. "You're offering to assist your conquerors?" "I'm offering a service in exchange for compensation," Marcus corrected. "That's capitalism, man. Figured you space invaders might appreciate the local expertise. For instance, I could tell you which neighborhoods to avoid after dark. Hint, it's most of them." Commander Vorax stepped off his shuttle onto Earth soil for the first time, his nostrils flaring as he sampled the alien air. His personal guard formed a protective perimeter as General Kraz approached and saluted. "Welcome to Earth, Commander. I apologize for the unimpressive surroundings." Vorax surveyed the landing area, a vast expanse of cracked concrete that had once been a parking lot for some local industry. In the distance, the skyline of Detroit rose against the morning sky, far smaller and less impressive than he had anticipated for a species at this technological level. "Status report," Vorax demanded, already displeased with what he was seeing. "We've secured a 5-kilometer radius around our landing zone," Kraz began. "Established checkpoints on major transportation routes. The local media has been reporting on our arrival, though much of it seems to be treated as either a hoax or entertainment. And the local authorities. We've made contact with several levels of their governance. Their responses have been inconsistent. Some officials have attempted to issue us permits and charge fees. Others have welcomed us as job creators and investors. A few have made threatening statements about resistance, but taken no meaningful action." Vorax frowned. "Have they not grasped that this is a planetary conquest? We're not here to participate in their economy." "I've made that clear, sir. The most common response has been good luck, with that followed by something they call laughter." Before Vorax could respond, a ground transport vehicle approached the checkpoint nearest their position. Unlike the rusted, primitive vehicles they'd mostly encountered, this one gleamed black with tinted windows. It stopped at the perimeter, and a human emerged, female, dressed in what appeared to be formal attire by local standards. "Commander," Kraz said quietly, "this is one of their officials. She claims to represent their local governing council." The woman approached, escorted by 2 security personnel. She showed no fear, only a professional demeanor that Vorax found surprisingly familiar across species lines. "Welcome to Detroit," she said once within conversational distance. "I'm Councilwoman Elaine Parker. I understand you're the one in charge of this operation." Vorax drew himself up to his full height, nearly 2 meters of scaled intimidation. "I am Commander Vorax of the Krellarran Empire. This planet is now under our dominion. Your people will submit to Imperial authority." Councilwoman Parker maintained her composure admirably. "Yes, I've heard your announcement. Very dramatic. I'm here to discuss practicalities." "Practicalities?" Vorax was taken aback. "The only practical matter is your surrender. Commander, you've landed in Detroit. Whatever intelligence led you here clearly failed to provide context. Detroit has been through economic collapse, population decline, municipal bankruptcy, and decades of political corruption. We've survived riots, crime waves, and the Lions football team. An alien invasion isn't going to make the top 5 list of crises this city has faced this decade. Vorax blinked rapidly, his species equivalent of a stunned expression. You dare speak to me this way? I'm speaking to you honestly, Parker replied. You want to conquer Earth? Maybe don't start with a city that's been fighting for its survival since before you got here. We've been abandoned by our own government for generations. You think you scare us? We have weapons that could level this entire region, Vorax hissed. So do we. They're called property developers. Parker smiled thinly. Look, Commander, I'm not here to fight. I'm here to be practical. You've landed in Detroit. You want to establish a base. Fine. But you should know what you're getting into. General Kraz stepped forward. Commander, perhaps we should hear what she has to say. Our intelligence on this region does seem to have been incomplete. Vorax glared at his subordinate but gave a curt nod. Speak, human. You've occupied mostly abandoned areas so far, Parker explained. Nobody really minded because nobody was using them anyway. But you'll soon discover Detroit has infrastructure issues. Water systems failing. Electrical grid unreliable. Internet connectivity spotty. And don't get me started on the potholes. These are trivial concerns for our technology, Vorax scoffed. Great. Parker's expression brightened. So you'll be fixing our infrastructure as part of your occupation. We what? Vorax was confused. Because if you're planning to use our roads, water, and power, you'll need to contribute to their maintenance. Even alien invaders need to pay taxes. Vorax felt a headache forming behind his secondary eyes. This was not how planetary conquests were supposed to progress. The locals should be either cowering in fear or mounting feudal resistance, not discussing tax policy. Commander, Kraz interjected quietly. We're also receiving reports of locals attempting to sell real estate to our troops. Apparently, property values have already increased in areas where we've established checkpoints. They're trying to profit from our invasion? Vorax couldn't keep the incredulity from his voice. Welcome to Detroit, Councilwoman Parker said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Now, about those building permits you're going to need. 3 Earth weeks into the occupation of Detroit, Commander Vorax stood before the tactical display in the command center, wondering how everything had gone so spectacularly wrong. Report, he growled, all 4 eyes fixed on General Kraz, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the galaxy. Commander, we've secured our position, Kraz began hesitantly. But we're experiencing several unforeseen complications. Such as? Well, sir, our vehicles keep disappearing. Vorax stared at him. Disappearing? Our military-grade, security-locked, technologically advanced vehicles are disappearing. Yes, sir. 12 transport vehicles and 2 light combat skimmers in the past week alone. We set them down, and hours later they're gone. Sometimes along with the weapons stored inside. How is this possible? The security protocols on our equipment would take your average primitive decades to bypass. Lieutenant Miza, who had been monitoring communications, cleared her throat. Sir, we've received reports that several of our vehicles have been spotted in an area the locals call chop shops. Apparently, they've been disassembled for parts. Vorax's scales flushed purple with rage. Disassembled? For parts? Our technology is centuries ahead of theirs. That appears to be precisely why they're valuable, sir, Miza replied. According to our local informants, there's now a thriving black market for Krellarran technology. Some of our energy converters are powering entire neighborhoods that previously had unreliable electrical service. Vorax collapsed into his command chair. What about our perimeter defenses? Kraz winced. Also problematic, sir. The sensor array we installed on the northern perimeter was disabled 3 times. The first time we found it had been stripped for parts. The second time, someone had grafted it into the local power grid. The third time he hesitated. The third time what? Someone had turned it into an entertainment system for something called a block party. They were using our quantum holographic projector to display something called Netflix. Vorax pressed a clawed hand to his forehead. And our troops? Surely they've maintained control. Well, Kraz looked even more uncomfortable. Morale has been challenging. Many of our soldiers have been fraternizing with locals. Some have started frequenting establishments called bars. Others have become fascinated with local cuisine, particularly something called Coney dogs and Detroit-style pizza. They're eating the native food? With considerable enthusiasm, sir. Private Ruzik has apparently started a food review channel on the human internet. He has something called followers. Vorax stared in disbelief. We're here to conquer these people, not become cultural tourists. What about the population processing centers? That's another issue, sir. We set up the standard processing facility to begin registering humans for their identification chips and labor assignments. But attendance has been minimal. Minimal? It's mandatory. Under Conquest protocol, all indigenous populations must report for processing. Yes, sir, we've made that clear. But enforcement has proven difficult. When our patrols attempt to bring in humans for processing, they encounter various obstacles. Some claim medical exemptions. Others produce documentation from their own authorities regarding prior commitments. Many simply aren't where they're supposed to be. This is absurd. They can't just ignore an alien conquest. With respect, sir, they appear to be doing exactly that. Kraz straightened, finding his professional demeanor again. There's more. We've had 3 break-ins at our main compound in the past 2 days. Break-ins? Humans breached our security? Yes, sir. The first was apparently looking for scrap metal. The second was a group of young humans who wanted to, quote, take selfies with the aliens for their social media accounts. The third claimed to be delivering food no one ordered. Vorax slumped deeper into his chair. What about our diplomatic outreach? Have we made any progress with their higher authorities? Science Officer Plex stepped forward, data pad in hand. Mixed results, Commander. The local government officials continue to insist we need various permits and licenses for our operations. Representatives from their national government arrived yesterday, but instead of surrender negotiations, they presented us with complaints about diplomatic protocols and immigration procedures. Immigration? Vorax hissed. We're not immigrants, we're conquerors. They seem to disagree, sir. They've classified us as undocumented foreign nationals and are demanding we complete something called visa applications. They've also expressed concerns about our impact on local property values and whether we're paying something called minimum wage to the humans we've hired. Hired? We don't hire conquered species. Kraz coughed awkwardly. Actually, sir, we've had to engage several local consultants to navigate their Byzantine regulatory systems. Also, after we lost our third maintenance technician to something called union organizing, Captain Jix authorized hiring local labor for certain functions. Vorax felt like his brain was melting. Let me understand this. We came to conquer this planet, and instead we're dealing with theft, bureaucracy, and labor disputes. Yes, sir. Oh, and taxes. Their Internal Revenue Service has contacted us about filing requirements. At that moment, the command center door slid open, and Tactical Officer Zenla entered, looking harried. Commander, we have another situation. What now? Vorax didn't think he could take much more. A group of humans in business attire is outside the perimeter. They claim to represent something called Detroit Economic Development Corporation and want to discuss investment opportunities and urban renewal initiatives. They've brought presentation materials and refreshments. Vorax buried his face in his hands. Send them away. We're not here for business meetings. We tried, sir. They've set up a tent and are networking with our perimeter guards. 2 of our officers are already discussing something called real estate flipping. Marcus leaned against the wall outside what the aliens had designated as their planetary administration headquarters, formerly the abandoned Packard automotive plant. He watched with amusement as Lieutenant Baz tried to direct a construction crew of both Krellarrans and humans who were attempting to repair the massive roof leak that had flooded 3 levels of their command center during last night's thunderstorm. "Having fun yet?" Marcus called out. Baz shot him a look that could have melted steel. "This structure is completely inadequate for our needs. The environmental controls malfunction constantly. The power grid is unstable. And now we discover the building itself is not weather-tight. Told you day 1, man. Should have set up in Bloomfield Hills if you wanted fancy digs. But you guys insisted on symbolic value of occupying human industrial centers or whatever." Over the past weeks, Marcus had transitioned from curious bystander to official cultural liaison for the invasion force, a position he'd essentially created himself by being the only human who regularly showed up at alien headquarters, offering helpful advice rather than bureaucratic obstacles or attempts to sell them things. "The Empire does not retreat from its strategic decisions," Baz replied stiffly, though Marcus noted the lieutenant's posture suggested he personally disagreed. "Not calling it retreat, calling it tactical repositioning. Military guys love that kind of talk, right?" Before Baz could respond, his communication device chimed. He listened, his expression growing increasingly alarmed. "I must report to the commander immediately. There's a situation developing." Marcus straightened. "What kind of situation?" "The dangerous kind where I should make myself scarce, or the entertaining kind where I should grab popcorn. The human authorities have sent what they call building inspectors. They claim our modifications to this structure violate numerous codes and ordinances. They're threatening to condemn our headquarters." Marcus burst out laughing. "Oh man, you got the city inspectors on your case? That's rough. Those guys don't even go easy on people from this planet." "This is no laughing matter," Baz snapped. "They're demanding we cease operations until we obtain proper permits and make required safety upgrades." Welcome to bureaucracy, spaceman. Red tape, humanity's secret weapon. Commander Vorax stood in the conference room, facing not the surrendering Earth officials he had expected when launching this invasion, but a collection of human bureaucrats, community organizers, and business representatives who had somehow turned his conquest into a community development project. "So as you can see from our presentation," continued the human woman who had introduced herself as director of the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, "your presence represents a unique opportunity for urban renewal. We're prepared to fast-track the necessary permits if you'll commit to hiring locally and investing in infrastructure improvements." Vorax fought to maintain his composure. "You seem to misunderstand our purpose here. We are not investors or developers. We are the advance force of the Krellarran Empire, here to claim this world for our emperor." The woman smiled indulgently, as if humoring a child. "Yes, of course. But even galactic empires need local partners, don't they? We're simply suggesting that your colonial aspirations might benefit from community engagement strategies." A man in what Vorax had learned was formal human business attire spoke up. "We've prepared tax incentive packages that could significantly offset your operational costs. The abandoned industrial zones you've occupied qualify for several development grants." "We don't need your grants," Vorax snapped. "We have the resources of an interstellar empire." "Then why are your troops shopping at Walmart?" another human asked. "My cousin works there. Says your soldiers buy out the snack aisle every weekend." Vorax shot a glance at General Kraz, who suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. "This meeting is over," Vorax declared. "We will proceed with our conquest plans without your interference." As the humans gathered their materials, Councilwoman Parker, who had been silently observing until now, approached Vorax. Commander, a word in private? Against his better judgment, Vorax agreed, following her to a corner of the room. Look, Parker said quietly, I understand you came here expecting to plant your flag and have everyone bow down. But that's not how Detroit works. It's not even how Earth works. So I'm discovering, Vorax admitted grudgingly. Your troops are getting integrated into the community whether you like it or not. They're shopping in our stores, eating our food, even dating some of our citizens. I caught 2 of your soldiers at a Tigers game yesterday, wearing jerseys and everything. Vorax winced. The reports of cultural contamination were apparently not exaggerated. Meanwhile, Parker continued, your fancy technology is disappearing faster than you can unload it. Your troops are dealing with culture shock. And from what I hear, your superiors back home are getting impatient with the lack of progress. How do you know about communications with our homeworld? Vorax demanded. Parker smiled. Your communications officer has been trading alien tech for concert tickets. Not the most security-conscious individual. Vorax made a mental note to have someone executed, or at least severely reprimanded, if he could figure out who it was. What's your point, human? My point is you have 2 options. Keep fighting the tide and lose, or adapt and find a way to turn this situation to your advantage. What do you suggest? Vorax asked, curiosity overcoming his irritation. David, tell your emperor you've discovered Earth has more value as a trading partner than as a conquest. The resources you were planning to extract, buy them instead. Probably cheaper in the long run than maintaining an occupation force. The technology you wanted to impose? License it. The cultural influence you hope to establish? You've already got Detroiters wearing those weird metallic fashion accessories your troops brought. Vorax blinked all 4 eyes in sequence. You're suggesting we abandon the conquest? I'm suggesting you rebrand it. From hostile takeover to corporate merger. Empires understand that concept, right? Before Vorax could respond, the door burst open and Lieutenant Miza rushed in. Commander. Urgent communication from Imperial High Command. The holographic image of Grand Admiral Vorax, Supreme Commander of the Krellarran Fleet, hovered above the communication array. His expression made Vorax's scales tighten against his body in dread. Commander Vorax, explain yourself. The Admiral's voice boomed. It has been nearly 1 Earth month since your landing, and we have seen no progress in planetary subjugation. Instead, we receive disturbing reports of our forces being integrated into local society, our technology being appropriated by primitives, and our military protocols being ignored. Vorax stood at rigid attention. Admiral, we've encountered unique challenges with this species. Challenges? The Krellarran Empire has conquered 17 worlds across 3 galactic sectors. We've subdued species with vastly superior numbers and even comparable technology. Yet you claim to be stymied by primitives who haven't even achieved routine interplanetary travel. With respect, Admiral, these humans are different. Their social structures are chaotic yet resilient. Their bureaucracy is more complex and impenetrable than anything in the Imperial Governance Codex. And their economic system somehow absorbs and commodifies everything it encounters, including our invasion. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. Are you saying they're defeating us through capitalism? And bureaucracy, sir. Don't forget the bureaucracy. This is unacceptable. The Admiral's image flickered as he gesticulated angrily. The Empire demands results. Vorax glanced at General Kraz and Lieutenant Miza, who stood nearby. An idea was forming in his mind, one that Councilwoman Parker had planted, but which might actually be the only viable solution. Admiral, after extensive reconnaissance and cultural assessment, I believe I've identified a superior approach to this planet. Explain. Earth represents more value as a trading partner and cultural exchange point than as a conquered world. Their society is too fragmented for traditional conquest methods, but their economic system is remarkably compatible with certain aspects of imperial commerce. The admiral looked skeptical. You propose trade rather than conquest? Strategic alliance, sir. We've discovered their world possesses cultural and commercial assets of unexpected value. Additionally, establishing a peaceful outpost here would give us access to their solar system's resources without the ongoing costs of maintaining occupation forces. This is highly irregular, Commander Vorax. So is this planet, sir. Their primary strength appears to be adapting to and absorbing outside influences. Rather than fighting this, I suggest we leverage it. A diplomatic and commercial presence would give us much of what we want without the resistance we're currently facing. The admiral was silent for a long moment. The emperor will not be pleased. The emperor desires results and increased glory for the empire. I believe this approach will yield better outcomes than continued attempts at traditional conquest. And we can always present it as us magnanimously choosing to elevate humanity to trading partner status rather than admitting any difficulties. Another long silence followed as the admiral considered. Very well, Commander. Proceed with establishing diplomatic relations and commercial ties. But be warned, if this alternate approach fails to yield benefits to the empire, you will bear full responsibility. Understood, Admiral. Thank you. As the communication ended, General Kraz approached. Sir, did you just convince High Command to abandon the conquest by making it sound like your idea? Tactical repositioning, General. Vorax replied with what passed for a smile in his species. Not retreat. 6 months later, Marcus stood beside Lieutenant Baz, now Commercial Attaché Baz, watching the grand opening ceremony of the Krellarran Embassy and Trade Center. The gleaming structure stood in what had once been a blighted area of downtown Detroit, now transformed into a hub of activity. Not bad for a species that came here to enslave us all, Marcus remarked. Baz adjusted his formal diplomatic sash. The Empire does not enslave. We prefer the term incorporate into our glorious civilization. Whatever helps you sleep at night, man. The crowd gathered for the ceremony was an unusual mix: Detroit city officials, business leaders, curious locals, and a contingent of Krellarran diplomats and officers. Commander Vorax, now Ambassador Vorax, stood at the podium, preparing to address the assembly. Never thought I'd see the day when aliens would be bringing jobs back to Detroit instead of taking them away, Marcus mused. The arrangement is mutually beneficial, Baz replied. Your city provides us with a cultural and commercial foothold on your planet. We provide technological exchange and investment. Plus, turns out humans really like those weird fruit things your people grow. The export business is booming. Baz nodded. And our people have developed an unfortunate addiction to your pizza and something called techno music. On the podium, Vorax began his speech, extolling the virtues of cooperation between their species and the bright future of Krellarran human relations. No mention was made of the original conquest plans, now officially described in all imperial records as a diplomatic first contact mission. You know what's funny? Marcus said. If you guys had landed pretty much anywhere else on Earth, things might have gone very differently. Military would have engaged, governments would have panicked, people would have freaked out. Yet your Detroit remained remarkably unimpressed by our arrival. Detroit's seen it all, man. Economic collapse, urban decay, corruption, rebirth, rinse and repeat. An alien invasion, just Tuesday. But that's why it worked out. Detroit doesn't break, it adapts. Baz considered this. Perhaps that's why our intelligence identified this location. Not as the ideal conquest point, but as the ideal contact point. Maybe. Or maybe the universe has a sense of humor. Either way, you gotta admit, giving you guys Detroit was probably the best thing we could have done. How so? You came to conquer Earth and got conquered by capitalism and bureaucracy instead. If we'd fought you with weapons, you'd have known what to do. But we fought you with paperwork, permits, unions, and zoning laws. No advanced civilization can withstand that. In the distance, Ambassador Vorax continued his speech about interstellar cooperation and cultural exchange, not mentioning how thoroughly his mission had been derailed by a city that refused to be conquered, not through resistance, but through stubborn insistence on business as usual. Your assessment is not entirely inaccurate, Baz admitted. Though I would phrase it differently in my reports. Course you would. Bureaucracy, the true universal language. Marcus grinned. Welcome to Earth, spaceman. Sorry about the potholes.